It's always very good to get a reminder that your wife is going to be better than you at everything for the rest of your life. So my name is Brendan Bobby. It's spelled baby, so get that all the time, but it is pronounced Bobby if you catch me later. I just want to make sure that Lowe's is not in the room and you've all signed your NDAs. Okay, good. I feel much more comfortable now. So I am Director of Customer Strategy at Home Depot, and we partnered with Dan, I guess about 8-9 months ago, to help understand a bit more about the Home Depot shopping experience. Do we have a remote for the slides? Oh, thank you. So in retail, the shopper experience is one of the most critical components of the engagement that we have with our customers, right? It frankly is the only time that we really interact with them face to face. And so it's critical that we get it right every single time they come in the store. And it's critical that that experience be a positive one that builds the relationship every time, because there's a really good opportunity to lose people if you create an experience that doesn't meet their needs, that doesn't do it quickly, that doesn't do it efficiently, that doesn't do it easily, because they can always go down to the street to that horrible blue box and find everything that they need there, right? So for us, the shopper experience is one of the most important components of what we do every day. And so we've worked for years trying to understand this, and this time around we thought we should get a little bit more creative with it. So for us, as I said, this is critical, but it's even more critical at Home Depot. Our founders, Arthur and Bernie, gave us, as they tell us all the time, they gave us the gift of culture. They also gave us the gift of overly done inverse pyramids. But it still underpins the way that we think about our relationship with our customers every day. They sit at the top. And everything else that we do is built to support the interaction between them and our in-store associates. So the CEO supports the corporate center, and the corporate center supports the field, and the field supports the frontline associates, and the frontline associates support the customer. And so it's baked into our DNA that this is what we do and this is what we try to do well. And so as I said before, it becomes extremely critical for us to get this right. In the modern world, this has changed a little bit though, right? It used to be that you just made sure the store was good, you made sure it was easy to walk down an aisle and find the screwdriver that you were looking for, pick it up off the shelf, go to the front, check out, and go home. But now people have so many more options. They can buy online, they can buy from Lowe's, they can buy from True Value, they can buy from Amazon, they can buy from Wayfair. There are all sorts of competitors entering the space that are providing not just other alternatives, but alternative options to complete the path. And so our experience has to continue to get better and better and better every day. So in order to do that, this is where we engaged with Dan, because we wanted to take what we'd been doing previously through exit interviews or voice of the customer surveys that were getting us a little bit of an approximation about how people felt, and really start to understand a lot more about what happens in the moment in the store.
Thank you. So I'm Dan Breaker with Breakthrough Research. First of all, I would just like to thank Brendan and Home Depot for doing this presentation with us. As Brendan mentioned, everything that we did is very confidential, and in fact, it's so top secret, I don't even know what we tested. But hopefully, we'll still have some interesting information for you today. And what we really did when we partnered with the Home Depot is we really used a blend of emerging tools focused on visual behavioral data, blended with traditional methodologies in order to get the full picture of not only what were shoppers experiencing as they went through the store and the shopping experience, but why they were doing it as well. And we had a full range of tools to be able to address all those different questions. And each of those tools does provide us with different information, and that's why you really need the blend of the different tools in order to get the full story. A big component of what we did was in-store eye tracking using specialized eyewear, and that's what allowed us to capture visual behavioral data. And not only what people were seeing, but navigation data as well, how they navigated through the store, and we'll go through a bit more of that in a moment. That was the most emerging technique of everything that we did, but that was blended with a whole range of other techniques, again, to get the full story. So we also used qualitative shop-alongs, so we can understand not only what people were seeing and experiencing, but why they felt the way that they did about those experiences. We also used exit surveys, which are, of course, a more traditional technique. But when married with the visual behavioral data, it can allow you to understand the impact that these in-store experiences are having on the shopping experience. And then a couple other techniques that are blended into the system as well are employee interviews, which give you that internal perspective beyond what the shopper is experiencing, but what's happening in in-store operations, as well as overall operational issues, and then online surveys as well, so you can test things that are not only in the store, but new concepts that might be rolled out to the store. So it's really the full blend of all these different techniques that gives you the full shopper experience. The key component of this, as I mentioned, is the in-store eye tracking. So this is where we had shoppers wear specialized eyewear, and this allows us to capture what we call visual behavioral data. Basically, everything they're seeing and experiencing in the store, both visually and audibly, what they're hearing or saying as well, is captured through the specialized eyewear that people wear during the shopping experience. For this, what we did was we intercepted shoppers as they are coming to the store, and we asked them if they wanted to participate. They had to meet a bunch of typical screening criteria for this type of study. But when they did participate, we fitted them with this eyewear, and we essentially asked them to go on a regular shopping trip, as they normally would. Navigate through the store as you normally would, go to the different sections that you normally would. If you're going to buy something as you normally would. We're asking them to experience a regular shopping experience. The only difference is that they are wearing this specialized eyewear that allows us to capture that data. And there are really a range of different things that you can capture through the eyewear that help you understand the full perspective of the shopping experience. One term that we use in this analysis is AOI, or area of interest. That is something that we've identified in the store that we're interested in to see whether the shopper is experiencing it or interacting with it or engaging with it in some way. So the very basic measure out of this visual behavioral data is called an AOI count. Out of all the shoppers that went through this experience, how many of them saw or experienced this area of interest? That's the real basic one, but there are a host of other measures that we can also collect. AOI time is a big one, so not only did they see it, but how much time did they spend looking at it? A heat map is a visual representation of where people were paying attention to, and that's a big part of the analysis, so we can look at the intensity of viewing the various areas of interest. First fixation is very important. If you're looking to see how much something actually grabs attention, you can look if someone noticed this specific area of interest first when they enter into that area where it's located. And then interaction is obviously a very big part of this as well. If we're looking at specific products that are in the store, we can look at whether shoppers touched it or held it. Did they interact with it in some way? And also the amount of interaction time. How long did they spend interacting with this product or looking at it or touching it? There are other measures as well. This is just a range, but hopefully this gives you a sense of the different kinds of measures you can get from the visual behavioral data. Another key part that we can get out of the eyewear is not only what are people seeing and experiencing, but where they go. And this is a really big part of it. So path tracking is a big part. Through the eyewear, we can actually code everywhere they go through the store, where they spend the time, what path they take. And that leads to some pretty interesting insights. Earlier on, Brendan showed that slide of all the questions that shoppers have as they're going through the store. And one of the key questions that people experience now is, how much time is this going to take? Am I going to have an easy shopping experience or a difficult shopping experience? And through the path tracking analysis, we can actually identify red zones through the store where people are spending more time than other amounts of time. And by looking at the navigation as well, we can sort of infer, is this a good amount of time where they're interested in this part of the store, or are they going back and forth because they're confused, and is this a bad use of their time? So the path tracking analysis is a really important component of understanding the shopper experience and understanding if this is a good experience in store, or is this a negative experience where the shopper might start to think, I'm spending too much time here. I should actually go online instead of coming into this store. And another important part that we can bring into this is also emotional engagement through the eyewear. So this measure allows us to understand not only what people are seeing and what are they experiencing and interacting with, but how do they feel about it, which is obviously a very important indicator of the impact that these in-store experiences are having on them. So there are a couple of different ways that we can do this. One way is through pupil dilation, which the eyewear allows us to capture. When we are emotionally engaged, the pupil dilates, which allows us to understand that this person is having some sort of level of engagement with what they're seeing. The other is voice pitch analysis. So as I mentioned, the eyewear also captures everything the person is saying or hearing. And through that voice pitch analysis, we can capture the emotional valence that they're having and the amount of arousal that they're having if they're describing what they're seeing as they're experiencing it. So through both those measures, again, they allow us to understand not only is this person seeing this, is this person doing something, but how do they feel about it? So those were really the emerging techniques that we use through the visual behavioral data. But as I mentioned, we also use several traditional techniques to round out the story and help us understand the full picture. A really important part of this was qualitative shop-alongs. I'm sure if anyone here is working in retail, they've used this technique. However, even though it is traditional, it is very important. And one of the key things that we did with this is we used the same eyewear that we use for people to collect the quant data, visual behavioral data. So people did qualitative shop-alongs accompanied by a moderator, but they narrated their experiences as they're going through the store and talked about what they were seeing, how they felt about it, what they thought about it. And through that, we were able to capture the shopper's point of view, which is a little bit different than a traditional qualitative shop-along. We also combine this with exit interviews, qualitative exit interviews at the end. So as you can see here, a picture, we were just using a regular camera here and talking to one of the participants. But we married these two together, the point of view video as well as the one-on-one video, and created immersive video highlight reels that Brendan was able to share with the senior team and help them just get to understand the shopper experience in more detail. So I'll show you a quick clip of what this may look like from the shopper's point of view.
So for instance, like this display, there's no lighting on this color. And I couldn't bring a homeowner in here. It needs to be better lit like this, because homeowners, you think this shows them enough of the grain and enough of the color, but it doesn't. This is a big shadow on here. I've known people to bring their rugs and things in to see if that's the right brown.
So hopefully that gives you a sense that if you do see things from the shopper's point of view, it does actually give you a little bit of a different perspective than if you're just talking to them one-on-one outside of the store. I mean, that video is so immersive, we even have forklifts beeping in the background. So hopefully that makes everyone feel like they're really in a Home Depot right now. But then we had some other techniques. The main components, again, were the eye tracking, the qualitative shop-alongs, and a few other techniques helped us round out the full shopper perspective. One key component of this is an exit survey. So when people finished their shopping trip with the eyewear, they then did an exit survey at the end where they told us what their experiences were like, what parts were more satisfying to them or less satisfying to them. And then we also captured some very important indicators of the impact on their shopping experience by looking at their overall satisfaction as well as their basket size. And those kinds of measures can help us understand these in-store experiences that they're having. What impact are they really having? Are they driving people to shop more? Are they driving them to have a better experience or not? We also did qualitative employee interviews. And this is one thing I would just advise anyone is an important component not to overlook if you are trying to understand the shopper experience. We can obviously get a lot of information from the shopper themselves, a lot of perspective from them, but the employees have a lot of frontline knowledge that is really invaluable for understanding the full picture. So they understand which in-store elements are really impacting the shopper experience. They know how shoppers are navigating through the store. They know when shoppers need help in the process. This was a really critical part for just getting that full picture that the shopper themselves may not even know. And lastly, an important part as well are online surveys. So a lot of the work that we did with Brendan and his team was in-store to help us understand what was going on with different in-store elements and experiences. But online surveys can also help you understand new concepts or prototypes before you spend the money and the resources to develop them and put them in store. And with the online surveys, we can use webcam-based eye tracking, which gives us a lot of the same measures as the in-store eye tracking, but again, before those items are fully developed and rolled out. And here's just a quick example of what a scorecard looks like, some of the results that we might share with Home Depot. So again, by looking at the noticeability and the impact on the experience, as well as the themes of what shoppers are telling us when they experience these items, we can give a full roadmap of what Home Depot should do moving forward in order to either roll out this item, optimize it, change it, or rethink it overall. So I know we're short on time, but we have just a few learnings, conclusions that we wanted to share. Brendan, did you want to do the first couple?
So, we presented Dan with a big question. It was, how do you measure something in an environment that isn't controlled, right? How do you control for variables that are just all over the place? And so coming out of this, there were really 4 big takeaways that I'm willing to share in public. So number 1, it is critical to optimize the shopper experience for maximizing revenue and retail efficiency, right? Like, that's just baseline for retailers. Number 2, the in-store experience is complex. There are multiple perspectives that you have to understand, and so it's really critical to get each component of that experience involved in the study. Number 3, taking a hybrid of both the emerging technology and very traditional research methods maximized the learning for us, because we weren't trying to lean on things that weren't proven yet, but we were applying them in ways that enhanced what had been very traditional for Home Depot. As a side note, it also helped sell that when we were presenting it internally, because we were able to build off of things that people understood, knew, and were comfortable with, and then say, oh, and by the way, let me show you some new tech that's adding to that insight. And then the 4th thing is that changes to the in-store environment, and there weren't a ton that we were really testing here, but they really need to be thoroughly tested before you roll them out, right? We call it moving steel. Anytime you move steel, you are burning money, and so that needs to work, right? Because it's a lot of money to try to move something back. It's a huge change. So we wanted to make sure, and going forward, we want to make sure that if we do plan anything big, that we do test it and we do bring all of these things to bear to give us that full 360 perspective.
Thank you.